I am so excited to have our guest on today. And so I'm just going to tell you a little bit about her. She is Maria Yakimchuk. From Parent on Board Coaching. Maria is a certified transformational EFT coach who helps moms heal from depression and anxiety, excuse me, without the use of medication. With her unique coaching approach that blends EFT, tapping, self-compassion work, and deep knowledge of maternal mental health, she helps moms heal their own childhood traumas, break free from dysfunctional familiar patterns, and eliminate shame and guilt so they can thrive in motherhood and create new healthy family norms for themselves and their children. She teaches you how to do this in as little as 10 minutes a day because all moms are busy and have no time to waste on techniques that require special setup and lots of time. She is also a mom of two very energetic, sensitive, and strong-willed boys and an easygoing dog. Maria is no stranger to struggling to find joy in the often busy and chaotic life as a mother. She is a PPD and a PPA survivor who has successfully healed her PPD, PPA, and PMDD, as well as debilitating migraines with EFT tapping and self-compassion meditations. Welcome, Maria. I am so excited to have you here today.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here today talking with you as well.
I'd love to start out with you just maybe explaining the PPD, the PPA, and the PMDD, as well as maybe a little bit about EMT, because I'm not sure our audience really knows what they are, but if with an explanation, they might actually associate themselves with that. And so that would be a great way to start.
Yeah, so we can start with sort of the disorders. So PPD is postpartum depression, PPA is postpartum anxiety, and PMDD is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So it's not PMS, it's significantly more life-altering and life-changing for a lot of women who have it. It's quite debilitating. It literally takes you out of living for probably the majority of the month because you could be suffering with physical symptoms, a lot of emotional symptoms like very severe depression, suicidal thoughts, hopelessness. It's a lack of energy as well. I kind of experienced all of those after my second child, and it was pretty terrible existence. In terms of EFT, which is what I do, it stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. Or tapping, which is what people know it as short form, because that's what you're doing. You're tapping on acupressure points. There's about 20 points that we use in the sequence. Those acupressure points are directly located on your nervous system. And so this makes it a somatic therapy because we use the body in order to help our emotions and our mental health. And that makes it very powerful because when we engage the body, we actually heal ourselves a lot faster and a lot better than if all we do is just kind of talk about it.
That's so powerful. And I love that. And I think, my daughter actually just had a baby who's going to be a year old in July already, but she had a preemie, and literally she would tell me, I'm not depressed, but I don't feel myself. I don't have energy. I know it's probably part of my hormones coming back, but she was in that little, and not getting out a lot. And so, I totally could see, her being like your ideal client.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because that's the thing, postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, and even just postpartum kind of adjustment to postpartum life, right? And for everybody, it's so different. And you're right, hormones affect it. Some of us are more sensitive to those hormone jumps. Some of us are more depleted. Some of us are just emotionally just so spent, and a lot of kind of our past traumas come up, and it's so hard to deal with it because it's such a vulnerable time. It's like we're a different person. We have this brand new baby that requires so much of us, not necessarily sleeping very well, might not be eating very well, and we're not getting out much. So there's just so many things that can contribute to us not feeling our best, even if, let's say, it's not severe enough to be qualified as clinical postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety.
Yes, and sometimes, they have those very fine lines and so if we don't meet that qualification, they think, oh, you're fine, you're just whatever, but it really does make a difference. And I know two of the things that you help moms with is that mom guilt and that burnout from overextending themselves. So can you talk a little bit about what is mom guilt and how can it stand in the way of being a coach or an entrepreneur in general?
Yeah, I think mom guilt is something every mom has, right? Like we almost like the moment we become pregnant, we start being ridden with guilt about our food choices, about our sleeping choices, our medical choices. And then it just goes on from there, right? Like once the baby is born, like I'm not
Yeah.
spending enough time with them. I'm not doing all of this. And really the guilt, what I feel like it comes from our kind of societal messaging, the way that we're brought up, right? It's society just guilts moms for everything. Like when you don't even have to go far, go into any mom Facebook group or even on TikTok or Instagram and look at the memes. Uh,
Yeah.
you breastfeed your baby, you might be wrong for that. You bottle feed your baby, you might be wrong for that. You feed your baby formula, you might be wrong for that. No matter what choice you make, everybody judges you for some reason,
Yes.
right? So we're
Yes.
surrounded by this kind of constant guilting and shaming of moms for no matter what choice they make. There's literally no right choice to make. And, it also depends on the kind of family that we grew up in. I think a lot of us have grown up in quite critical families just because generationally, generations past had much more critical approach to parenting and to relationships in general, right? So a lot of us have these ingrained messages that we heard our own mothers or our grandmothers or aunties say. And then when we become mothers, all of a sudden they come to the surface. We didn't know they were there, right? Just
Nope.
lying under there. And then they come up and then they just flood us. And as I was mentioning before, right, the postpartum time is very vulnerable. And even just kind of the first few years postpartum, they are very vulnerable because we are stretched thin. The kids don't sleep as much. They require a lot of physical input from us,
Mhm.
especially if you're a stay-at-home mom. It is an incredibly taxing job physically because you're running after this little kid who lives on a completely different schedule from you in reality, has tons of energy while you're completely depleted. So there's not much left for us mentally. And so we go down into these guilt spirals and shame spirals and just guilt and shame us so much more, right? And that's just existing as a mom. In terms of coaching, right, that guilt starts popping up of, well, I can't be a coach because what if that takes time away from me being with the baby, right? I
Mhm.
can't be not with the baby. What if I have to put them in childcare? That makes me a horrible mother. Then because we added the baby, our income might be less. I can't spend money on myself to invest in the business because I'm taking it away from the family. I'm taking away from the baby. Then the other part is it's a lot of it is about timing. I don't have time because what happens is for a lot of us, even in the best intentioned relationships, the moment you become a mom, we end up splitting into these very gender normative roles where
Mhm.
the mom and the woman is the one who becomes responsible for all the childcare tasks, for all the household tasks, and she's just inundated with these tasks. And so she feels like guilty if she needs to carve out a time to build this business, to work on this business, and find a way for her partner to step in or to find outside help because maybe they're both really busy and they can't. There's guilt there. I think there's lots of mom guilt that prevents moms from going out and pursuing becoming a coach.
I totally agree with you. And that's everything you said, I've related to in the past, because even when my kids were little, I was a daycare provider. I had a daycare out of my home. And so I was a business entrepreneur, way back when, and did all different kinds of consulting and stuff like that. So, it was one thing to have other kids in my house, when my kids were doing things. So I had to set really clear boundaries for that and for the other people that I had coming in. And I had to let some people go because they didn't respect my boundaries with, okay, I'm running a business, I'm taking care of your kid all day, but now it's, 6 o'clock and I want to go to my kids', events. So we had to make some clear lines in there. But what other messages about motherhood also hold us back in business? Because there's so many things besides just that mom guilt that, hold us back.
Yeah, I think one of the messages that I personally heard growing up, and I think a lot of women have heard, is that even if it's kind of implied, is that your male partner is more important than you. It is more important for them to achieve in the career world than it is for you. They find that fulfillment in it. You don't. Your fulfillment is the moment you become a mom. That's it. Your life is fulfilled, right? Or that you can't make the income that he can make. I think that stops a lot of women, because while we go into coaching because we want to help others, we don't exactly go into it as volunteer work. We do want to make an income, right?
Mhm.
And when we have this message of, I will never make as much as him, we're not going to invest in coaching programs. We're not going to invest in maybe some certifications or something that will help us grow in the business. And I'm also speaking from personal experience, because I've had to overcome those same obstacles myself and convince myself that no, if I want to grow, I need to invest that money. But in the back of my head, there's always this like, well, you'll never make enough money in this. You will never be as good as him. You will never make the income that he's doing. You will never get the return on your investment, right? Like,
Right.
and so we don't invest the time into us. I think the other one, and it did go with the guilt, but we tell ourselves we don't have time. That is the one thing as a mom, we tell ourselves we don't have time for this because we have all these other tasks. The underlying thing with time, it's all about prioritization. What you're
Mhm.
saying is that I don't have the space to make myself a priority. That,
Right.
that's the
Yes.
underlying message, right? I am not a priority. I don't have the space to make myself a priority. That will stop you in pursuing your business, because if you have only maybe 2 hours a day and you feel like I'm so spent, maybe I need to do the dishes instead, you're not going to be pursuing your business, and you are going to stop yourself in that growth, and you're not going to go and invest in yourself and grow and spend the time growing it, because what's the point? I'll never make enough money and I don't have the time. So it's okay. It's okay to just let it go by the wayside. I think another one is women, not just moms, but women in general. We do have this issue with self-esteem in a sense, because we want to be perfect. We will not do
Yeah.
something unless we're perfect. And I heard this woman who she teaches girls to code. I can't remember her name, but she said something that I thought was a perfect quote. Is that when we raise boys and girls, we teach boys to be brave and we teach girls to be perfect. And because we teach girls to be perfect, when we grow up as women, we are not going to go pursue a business just because we wanted to. We need to have all our ducks in a row. So we will sit on it for years before we'll even take a step. And then it might fail because we kind of didn't really do the right prep work. We were trying to make it look really good and do what we thought we needed instead of making the connections and seeing are people interested in it. Whereas a man might go with just his ideas and
Yes.
succeed, because if he fails, it's okay. But for us, we hold this kind of an idea that if we fail, that's it, there's no going back from there. And so I think that holds a lot of women from pursuing their coaching or pursuing it in time instead of sitting on it for years before even taking that step.
I totally agree with you. And as far as the whole point of, men being able to make more and we're not able to make as much as them, we actually put that ceiling so low for ourselves that we find then very hard to break through that glass ceiling and attempt, because I know plenty of women who are entrepreneurs and who've way outranked their husbands or spouses or boyfriends or whatever partners, and they actually were like really surprised, but they were actually able to create an income that was way beyond what their spouses were making. And it is the guilt that we put everything and we don't create time for ourselves. I love that you said that, because I think that's one of the biggest things as far as the coaches and stuff, that we just keep putting it on the back burner. We don't make that time. We don't spend, okay, I'm going to spend an hour or 2 hours a day or 1 hour a day, and that's my time. And so it does really, really make it really hard for us. What is the most important thing that you think we could do to let go of that guilt and, our limiting beliefs on what we can accomplish as women and as coaches.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's what I do with EFT with my moms, right? Like, because the guilt and the limiting beliefs, they affect you whether professionally or in motherhood. And so we work on it through EFT tapping of basically we are letting go of those beliefs. And it's sort of a mindset shift, but it's a more natural mindset shift. We're not necessarily, we do the affirmations, but that's after we clear out all the guilt, all of these limiting beliefs while we're tapping and basically sending them away out of our system so that we create the space to put in new beliefs. And so in reality, we do need to do a lot of mindset work in order to push through these limiting beliefs. If we don't do the mindset work, if we don't change that belief within ourselves, it's just going to keep holding us back. And for me, EFT is one of those ways that I help my clients to push past that and to let go of that guilt and to, find their authentic selves, the ones that are screaming for, fulfillment in a job of like being an entrepreneur, being something else, but being fully present and being able to give themselves the space and the time to invest in themselves and not just in everybody else.
Right. And so how does EFT actually help us in doing that? Like what are the techniques or how does that actually help us?
Yeah. So the reason why EFT helps us maybe a little bit faster than, talk therapy or, traditional kind of like talk, like coaching where we just set the goals is because these limiting beliefs and these negative messages, they're sitting deep within us, kind of like in our nervous system. And it's almost like if you thought of us as a computer, it's almost like this background program running. It's always there. We might not see it, we might not feel it, but it's affecting everything that we're doing. It is literally affecting every single decision. And so if we are functioning from a belief that, I will never make enough money, then we continue making all of those decisions that will actually support that because our brain is always looking to support our belief.
Yes.
Right. And that's where the mindset work comes in. And what happens with EFT is because it's somatic, we're working on the body. So we're actually tapping into your nervous system directly. So it's affecting you directly on this primal level. It's bypassing your kind of cognitive and conscious mind. And it's just going into your amygdala, the things that fire and put us into fight or flight or freeze and things that basically just works like that, to clear out that negativity. And then when we have that negativity cleared out, we use a kind of like a CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy approach, where we put in reframes, where we put in new beliefs, where we tap on the fact that, I am worthy and I am able to make this much money, or like I can out earn my spouse, or I have the freedom to earn. Basically, we're reprogramming our body with these new beliefs. And because we're tapping on the body while we're doing that, it just amplifies and makes it that much more powerful, because when our body is involved, we start believing it on this deep primal level. We don't have to sort of use our logic for it. And then, on top of that, you can add things like affirmations and any of these other things because it becomes easier. Because one thing I've seen with some of my clients and even with myself is when I had the limiting beliefs, doing affirmations wasn't working. Right. Because it's almost like, when you have a mess and you shove it under a rug and try to cover it up, that's what it felt like. So
it's still there, right?
Yeah,
you haven't gotten rid of it.
Yeah. So EFT is almost like taking that giant vacuum and clearing out all the garbage, all this emotional garbage, all these messages that we have accumulated over our own years, or that are even generational, right? That are sitting in our generational memory. And then once we clear that out, then we can bring in those new beliefs, and then we can work from there. Then we can continue on our mindset work, because, we can continue to joy and to happiness and to all these higher vibration feelings. And then when we bring that into our business, right, we can bring in more abundance because we believe in ourselves finally.
Yeah. And I think that's important too. And you mentioned, like, when you do EFT, you're going to sit for a few minutes, 10 minutes or whatever. And that 10 minutes, I think, also allows us to connect with us our inner selves, because we don't even do that. We get up in the morning and we're on the go from, as soon as we get up until nighttime. We take no time. So that 10 minutes is 10 minutes for yourself, I think. And explain how many or how long of a process would it take somebody to kind of start seeing a change in maybe how this might affect them?
Yeah, so there's no set limit, obviously. When I do sessions, my sessions are an hour, right? And so part of it is talking, part of it is tapping. So let's say we're in an hour session tapping from somewhere between 30 and 45 minutes, right?
Mhm.
With those kind of sessions, for most things, I see movement sometimes in as little as one session, sometimes in two. For heavier trauma, we usually see it after 4 sessions. It's
Mhm.
usually between 4 and 10 sessions. If you're working on yourself within 10, you're spending 10 minutes a day, it might take a few weeks before you start seeing real improvement. But you probably will see something within the first couple of days. And it might be
Okay.
tiny, right? Like even just like a tingle somewhere or, a yawn here and there, which all that means is that your nervous system is regulating and it's releasing whatever it's been holding. And that's the process. It's a very gentle process. It re-regulates you. And I think of it as almost like a moving meditation in some ways because
Okay.
you are moving, you're directly engaging your body, so it's a lot harder for your brain to just kind of like go off and
Right.
do the list of like, oh well, what do I need to buy at the grocery store today, right? So it keeps you a lot more present, which is what I like. And also sometimes it's sort of like a stream of consciousness, and you don't know where it
Mhm.
leads, that when you kind of talk about one thing and all of a sudden the memory from a long time ago pops up of maybe like, your grandma or grandpa told you something really mean and apparently you didn't realize it, but that's been affecting you since you were 4. Right.
Right.
And that's what I love about EFT. It's this beautiful discovery process, and it helps you really understand what is underneath, what is actually holding me back. And it can be a really long process. I mean, I've been practicing for the past 2 years and I cleared some parts out, right? Some really heavy parts. I kind of took a break in a sense that like nothing new was coming up. And then recently some other stuff started coming up. So it's
Mhm.
a lifelong process in terms of healing. But a specific issue, you could clear that out in as little as 4 sessions.
Wow, I love that. I love how all these holistic alternative modalities actually can help us release a lot of the old things that we are holding back. And that is really what is affecting us. I mean, from, like you said, generational to just when we were a child to even like years ago, when we've had things happen and they're just sitting in the background and we don't realize that they are, really just waiting to come out. And so, how choosing ourselves first not only will help our business, but will also help our family life as well. Because I don't think that some of the moms and the coaches actually put the two together, or when they do, they just think of it, okay, I got to take care of my family. I can't do this for myself.
Yeah, and that's actually a big part that in my longer program that I work with my moms on is I think this piece is really hard to overcome. That how can I invest in myself when all I've heard all my life from society and from family is that the job of a mom is to put herself last and to serve everybody else, right? That is the message. And that is actually one of the messages that we tap on to clear out, because I think that message is such garbage, doesn't serve women, doesn't serve families. Because the truth is, when you function from that mindset, you are pouring out of an empty cup. The,
Yes.
the problem is, as a mom, when you're an empty cup, what happens? Your nervous system gets dysregulated, which means you are very easily rattled. You are easily overstimulated. You get burnt out. And what that means is you are yelling at your kids. You're probably yelling at your husband. You feel like you're just basically fried all the time. Your
Mm.
relationships are crumbling around you. And then if you have a business, you might not be putting in the time into it, right? Like
Mm.
you just don't have the time because you're so spent. And then your actually like your mental health is probably going, but your physical health starts deteriorating too. And so when we look at that like this, you're not serving your family or your business. You're not fulfilled, you're not happy, and you're not functioning from a calm and peaceful place. So you're actually not functioning at your optimal level. Now, when we start clearing that out and realizing that if I invest in me and I sit down and maybe journal and write down, what is it that I like now? What is it that lights me up? What do I want to get up for in the morning? and then make the space for all those yeses, we realize that when we fulfill ourselves, we are better. That means we can be better for our family. We could be better for our kids. We're calmer. We're more present. We choose when we're with them. And when we're with them, we're fully with them. We're not going through our grocery list when we're playing with them or something, or reading a book, right? And the business is part of it because, again, like women have been taught that being basically going after like a career choice, right? It's not for us, it's for men. Like that's how men fulfill themselves. And we pretend that the only way that women fulfill themselves is through being a mother or through being a homemaker. But that is not true for a lot of women. I mean, if that was true, we wouldn't have so many women entrepreneurs, right? Or women working, or women CEOs, right?
Exactly.
So clearly it is just as important to women as it is to men. So if you allow yourself to pour into your business, you are then also more fulfilled. And again, that when you're with your kids, you become more present, you become more pleasant, let's be honest, when you're not burnt out, right? Then you can be the happy mom, you could be the happy wife. And that's how you bring those two together. You have to follow your passion, right? Obviously, with you, we're talking about moms who do want to be coaches. So, you know, that is their passion. If you're somebody who wants to be just wants to be a homemaker and a stay-at-home mom, and that's your passion, that's great too, right? That's what you should pour into. But the most important part is to first sit down and actually make that list of what is it that lights you up right now, because you've changed after you became a mom. And so maybe what you were interested in before you became a mom, you might not be interested in anymore. And so it's important to basically reacquaint yourself with who you are now and what would make you happy, and then see how you can bring that into your life.
I love that, because I think we do, from pre-kids, right? We have dreams, we're working, we're business people, we're working and that, have careers or whatever. And then all of a sudden we decide to have kids, we have them and lots of us are stay-at-home moms, but some are working moms. And so life changes and things change. I know I just had some research come up where a lot of women are leaving the workforce outside to do something on their own. It was a really big dip in the last couple of years. So I think that this is going to be helpful in them, but really just going back to what is it I want to do and who am I right now, or who do I want to become? And I think that's really a powerful thing to do. And I know that releasing some of those old ideologies that we had and the stigmas and what we were taught as, kids growing up, and even what we're teaching our kids today, if we can let go of that, then we can create something new for ourselves and for our family. So I love that you do EFT. I have had some of that done in the past, and some very interesting things and how it came about, right? It was actually the universe brought it to me, and it was pretty powerful at the time. So I really encourage people to connect with you. And so what is the best way that, the coaches in this group, there's over 1,000 of them in here. So how can they connect with you? And do you have a freebie or, some kind of something that they can get from you to learn more about what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on Facebook at Parent on Board Coaching, and I have the same handle for Instagram and TikTok. You can find me on my website, parentonboard.com, and I do have a freebie there. It's kind of towards the bottom, or there's a pop-up where I have a freebie vault where I have an ebook on just kind of introducing EFT for moms. I have a little demonstration. I have some tools for anxiety. And I also even have some freebies for little kids for toddler age of doing some emotional regulation and things like that. So encourage people to sign up there and get on the mailing list to see when things are coming about. And yeah, if anybody has any questions, they can email me at parentonboard@gmail.com. I'd be happy to chat with anybody and answer questions and see if, any of my programs might be a good fit, or if I might be able to help the women in the group in any way to, help themselves to feel better, and also to help in their business. Because again, like I've noticed that within myself too, building a business, a lot of those beliefs, they do hold us back, and it is really hard to actually achieve any sort of success when you're just ruminating on the fact of, I can't do this, I will never be good enough, and things like that. And I'm also no stranger of sitting on something for a very long time before acting on it. I mulled over the idea of becoming a coach for a good 2 years before doing it. So, I would love to help other moms and other coaches not have to go through that process, because now looking back now, that was not necessary, right?
No, I know.
But again, it's that idea of perfection, of this has to be perfect. All my ducks have to be in a row before I can even take a step.
Right.
But when you start clearing that out and you start taking chances, talking to people, creating things, you all of a sudden realize that, failure, even if something fails, right? A product fails, a course fails, it's not a bad thing. It's just a learning opportunity, just for you to realize, well, maybe this wasn't what my audience was looking for. Maybe there's something to learn from here and to improve. And that is so powerful when you can approach your business from that perspective, rather than, I failed, that's it, I need to get out of this, I'm not good enough, I will never succeed.
Yeah, I totally get that. And I will be sure, coaches, to put all of Maria's information down below this video. It is also going to be on my YouTube channel, so you can go there and check her out if you haven't watched it in here. And I just want to ask you one last question that I ask all of my podcast guests. What's on your bucket list that you haven't done yet that you want to do?
Oh my God, on my bucket list, I really want to go to New Zealand and ride horses there, because before I became a mom, my husband and I, for about 10 years, took horseback riding lessons. Unfortunately, that was in our 20s, so we had no money to go to New Zealand, and then, got pregnant and never went back to horseback riding. So I'm kind of waiting for the kids to be a little bit older to take some lessons, and for all of us to take this nice big trip.
Oh, awesome. I would love to see you do that. And you just took a big trip, correct?
I just went?
You just came back from a big trip as well, didn't you?
I did, yeah. It was not a happy trip. It wasn't like a vacation trip, but yeah,
Right.
I just came back from a big trip, and that was definitely very interesting to be away from my kids for 2.5 weeks. I've never had it for that long. So
Wow.
That was something.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I am so happy that you came here and spoke here today. I really appreciate you for doing that. And I will be sure, like I said, to put your information down and let the coaches come out and connect with you and check out your information and hopefully get on a call with you.
Yeah. Thank you, Lisa. I'm really thank you for this opportunity to be able to speak to your audience and to share with them, because yeah, my goal is to let other women know that there are so many tools where you can help yourself, and you don't need to be, clinically depressed or have clinical anxiety in order to better your life. It could always be better, and this is a fantastic tool for that.
Awesome. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Lisa.